On the morning of November 9th, 2021, criminal investigators from the IRS stormed a mansion in Gainesville. Like hunters, they scoured the house, searching every nook and cranny. When they ascended to the second floor, something unusual caught their attention: a popcorn tin. Inside it, wrapped in a towel, lay a single-board computer. And on this tiny device were hidden $3,360,000,000 in Bitcoin. These Bitcoins had been stolen by Jimmy Zhong almost 10 years earlier. But what's even more astonishing, the person from whom Jimmy stole the cryptocurrency not only didn't demand them back, but even thanked him, rewarding him with an additional 5,000 Bitcoins. Jimmy had never been a popular guy. He was an outcast among his peers and suffered from bullying. In school, he was often teased and mocked for his introversion and appearance. His parents, who should have been his support, were constantly busy with their own affairs and struggled to make ends meet. To escape from the harsh reality, Jimmy spent a lot of time on the computer. He studied programming and, by the end of high school, knew several programming languages. After enrolling in university, his life changed dramatically. Endless parties and alcohol became a constant part of his life, but he didn't have enough money for all of it. Around that time, on a programmer's forum, he learned about cryptocurrency. No one knew then that Bitcoin would skyrocket in value in the future, and even Jimmy couldn't predict his destiny. In 2009, Bitcoin was worth pennies. However, Jimmy became one of the first to start mining cryptocurrency, and soon he had mined several Bitcoins. Years passed, and the price of Bitcoin began to rise rapidly. Realizing that he was now on the brink of wealth, Jimmy decided to use his knowledge of cryptocurrency to secure a luxurious life for himself. And he succeeded. He spent money on parties, alcohol, and drugs, carelessly enjoying every minute. However, it was his dependence on these pleasures that became the reason he became a billionaire in the future, without even suspecting it. In 2011, the first darknet marketplace called Silk Road was launched, offering users anonymous transactions using cryptocurrency. Jimmy, as one of the first clients, used the services of this marketplace, buying himself goods for personal use. In 2012, he accidentally discovered a vulnerability on the site that allowed him to withdraw twice as many Bitcoins as he had on balance. And he decided to exploit this opportunity to the fullest. He created new accounts, deposited small amounts of Bitcoins, and withdrew much more. In a few operations, he withdrew 50,000 Bitcoins, which at the time weren't worth very much. The owner of Silk Road didn't immediately notice this vulnerability, and upon learning of the bug, didn't demand the money back. On the contrary, he thanked Jimmy for the discovery and even added more Bitcoins to his account as a token of appreciation. Several years later, the price of Bitcoin began to soar, and this completely changed Jimmy Zhong's life. In 2017, when cryptocurrency reached unprecedented heights, Jimmy unexpectedly became a billionaire in dollars. With billions of dollars in Bitcoins, Jimmy plunged into a life of luxury. He began buying expensive homes, yachts, and cars. However, his money didn't go only to material things. He spent enormous amounts on parties, alcohol, and drugs. Jimmy threw lavish parties, gave his friends $10,000 each, rented private planes, and flew with them to games of his favorite baseball team. But beneath the glamorous exterior lay internal chaos. Jimmy sank deeper into addiction. Most of his friends used him as a source of money, and he had no real closeness with anyone. His only true friend was his dog named Chad. On March 13th, 2019, Jimmy Zhong found himself in a very difficult situation that played a decisive role in his future arrest. He called the police in the city of Atlanta and reported that his house had been robbed. Jimmy told the police that he hadn't been home for about 2 weeks, and when he returned, he discovered that 150 Bitcoins and $400,000 in cash were missing. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary burglary, but the very fact that Jimmy decided to contact the police was an extremely risky move. The police arrived on the scene and began investigating, inspecting the house and viewing footage from security cameras. The recordings showed a slender young man who broke a window and confidently entered Jimmy's house. as if he already knew where the stolen items were located. All this indicated that the burglar could be someone from Jimmy's close circle, one of those friends he generously showered with money and invited to parties. The police also began to question why Jimmy kept such large amounts of cash at home and how he could afford such a luxurious lifestyle without visible sources of income. Jimmy explained that he had invested in bitcoins and real estate, which at that time didn't arouse strong suspicions. However, the situation changed after the IRS intervened in the investigation, already working on a case involving a large Bitcoin theft from Silk Road. Jimmy, without realizing it, had put himself at risk by calling the police. While the police investigated the burglary, the IRS began its own investigation, trying to trace the theft of 50,000 Bitcoins. They began to suspect that his mysterious wealth, which he flaunted to his circle, could be connected to this theft. Jimmy was too conspicuous in his luxurious lifestyle, and his lavish spending, like renting private planes and giving away money, didn't escape the authorities' attention. The IRS, specializing in tracking financial crimes, started to study his transactions in more detail. Soon they discovered his name in one of the small transactions on a cryptocurrency exchange, where identity verification was required. This became Jimmy's crucial mistake. A small amount of $800 transferred through a crypto exchange left a trail that allowed the IRS to link him to the stolen bitcoins from Silk Road. By the time Jimmy realized that the investigation was targeting him, it was already too late. The police and IRS began working together, coming to him under the pretext of helping investigate the burglary. However, their true goal was to search Jimmy's house for evidence of his involvement in the Bitcoin theft. Investigators convinced him to provide access to his computer, on which they found the very Bitcoin wallet with billions of dollars. To conceal their actions, they used a special device that prevented the computer from going into sleep mode. Investigators began by inspecting the main rooms, the living room, bedroom, and kitchen, but everything looked ordinary. Knowing that Jimmy might have carefully hidden important devices, they turned their attention to more concealed places: closets, storage rooms, utility spaces. Every corner was meticulously checked. Drawers were pulled out, hidden spots examined, personal belongings carefully inspected, especially his study. When they entered the bathroom on the second floor, behind a cabinet door, they found something unusual: a popcorn tin. Inside, it was a single-board computer wrapped in a towel, on which billions in bitcoins were stored. But the search didn't end there. Continuing to explore the house, investigators found cold crypto wallets hidden in more secure places. For example, in safes concealed under concrete slabs. This gave them full access to the stolen bitcoins that Jimmy had carefully hidden all these years. When billions of dollars in bitcoins were confiscated, the question arose as to where these funds should go. By law, stolen funds should be returned to their owners, but in this case, things were more complicated. The owners of the bitcoins were users of the Silk Road platform, known for its illegal activities related to the sale of drugs and illicit goods. Sellers and buyers on Silk Road were themselves criminals, and none of them could legally demand the return of these funds. Thus, the confiscated bitcoins amounting to more than $3 billion were transferred to the federal budget of the United States, making it the second largest seizure in the history of the U.S. Department of Justice. This case highlights how complex and convoluted the world of cryptocurrencies and the darknet can be. Jimmy, starting with innocent experiments and exploiting a system vulnerability, built himself a crypto empire. But greed and attempts to hide his wealth led him to ruin. In November 2022, Jimmy Zhong pleaded guilty to fraud and was sentenced to 1 year and 1 day of imprisonment. This punishment was the result of his illegal activities that lasted nearly a decade, during which he concealed his enormous fortune. Despite the relatively short term, his arrest and sentence served as a powerful reminder that even the most complex crypto crimes can be solved and the perpetrators brought to justice.